Still standing transfixed at the spot, Mireille tried to recall if there were moments Dante Romano was warm to other girls, but she could not remember because moments like that did not exist. The only time Dante ever smiled genuinely was when he was with her, annoying her with the princess title. Those were the only times his eyes ever found warmth. You do not have to just stare at me and strip me with your eyes. You could strip me with your hands instead. He gave her a one-sided smirk and Mireille quickly looked away from him, her face flushing up as she realized that she had really been staring at him for too long. Dante picked up the picture he had been staring at and waved it in the air. You don't just look cute anymore. You now look. His eyes traveled all over her. From her still slightly damp hair to her toe. Beautiful. Damn. She sure had grown beautiful over the years, and Dante was only saying beautiful because he did not want to describe her as what he really wanted to. Sexy. The blue dress she was wearing was unable to hide the curves underneath them from his eyes. He looked up her tummy to her bust. Those tits sure had grown bigger over the years. His gaze landed on her beautiful face, and that was when Mireille looked back at him. Their eyes met, and for the next few seconds, Mireille felt glued to the spot. It's time to leave, princess. Dante looked away from her mesmerizing eyes, brushing away the thoughts of how beautiful those eyes would look if she was on her knees with his cock in her mouth. Damn you, Dante. She is supposed to be like a sister to you. He cursed at himself and walked up to her, taking the luggage from her. I don't want to go anywhere with you, Dante, Mireille said firmly, and Dante chuckled. Would you rather I carry you over my shoulders, princess? He asked, flicking his dark, curly hair backward, and Mireille did not need to ask him if he was serious about that. Stop calling me princess, she said, ignoring his question. I am sure we have argued over this several times 7 years ago, he replied and leaned in close to her. Mireille felt her breath hitch as she breathed in his manly cologne. Yes, she did not like him a bit for so many reasons, but still yet, she was a girl, she was straight, and this man in front of her was definitely deemed as sexually appealing to every straight girl. She quickly leaned back, away from him before taking 2 steps back to create a small distance between them. And the conclusion of the argument? Mireille inquired. That I continue calling you princess. Your name is too hard for me to pronounce, so I am just going to stick to princess. He leaned away from her totally, the playful smirk on his face gone in a quick instant. Let's go. His voice was suddenly authoritative, and Mireille found herself walking towards the door while he walked behind her with his luggage. A black car was waiting, and Mireille immediately walked towards the door to pull it open, but Dante stopped her. Don't tell me you forgot I don't let the princess open the car door herself, he said to her and pulled open the door for her. Mireille wanted to say something, but she gulped it down and got into the back seat of the car, not wanting to have to talk to him for long. Mireille brought out her phone just as Dante revved the car to life. She began browsing through the phone, trying to do anything that would stop her from stealing glances at Dante. But nothing on the internet seemed to be of interest to her. It seemed like the only interesting thing right now was the man behind the wheels. Mireille found herself eventually staring at him through the mirror. His face was pulled into a hard look as he drove, but even with his hard look, he looked enchanting, and Mireille was staring longer than she intended to stare at him. No, she had not even intended to stare at him at all. Suddenly Dante looked at the mirror too, and their eyes met. Mireille quickly looked away from his gaze. The hard look on Dante's face vanished. You can stare as much as you want, princess. I was not staring, she lied. Good girls should not lie, you know. I am not a good girl, Mireille retorted. She hated it when James and Dante called her that and made her feel naive and innocent. You sure are a good girl, princess. Mireille was about to respond when her phone beeped with a message. She checked it and found that it was a message from her boyfriend. Mireille had almost forgotten these past minutes with Dante that she had a boyfriend. Dante had totally occupied her mind. She opened the message and giggled softly. What's that? Dante questioned. My boyfriend, she replied without thinking twice. Dante suddenly stepped on the brakes and the car jerked to an abrupt stop. Mireille gasped in shock, her eyes widening. What the heck? Were you planning to kill me? Since when did James start letting you have boyfriends? He questioned, turning to face her, his expression stony. I am more than old enough. I am not a high school girl anymore, Mireille reminded him, and Dante slowly looked away. That was right. She was no longer little, and he certainly was not expecting her to have never dated at 24, right? Of course she would have dated a few times, but still, for some reason he could not lay his hands on. The fact that the sexy lady in his car had a partner did not sit well with him. Mireille dropped her phone and leaned back into the seat, forcing her eyes to shut to prevent herself from glancing at him over and over again. She could recall previous memories of them in high school, and a frown appeared on her face as she recalled a memory. Flashback *. I really like you, Mireille, Dave, her classmate said, and reached into his pocket, bringing out a beautiful necklace. Young Mireille felt her heart race. With James and Dante hovering all over her, no guy in school had been brave enough to ask her out, but Dave had just did so. What the fuck is going on here? Dante's voice cut them off just as Mireille stretched her hand forward to receive the necklace. Dave immediately withdrew his outstretched hands, fear flickering in his eyes as Dante came in between he and Mireille. Dante's eyes were lit with fury, and not getting a response from Dante made him groan in frustration. He grabbed the necklace from Dave's hands. You want to ask her out with his miserly necklace? He dropped the necklace on the floor and stomped his feet on it. No one. Not you, not any other guy in this school is good enough for Princess. Stay away from her, or I will have to make you stay in a wheelchair for the rest of your life, he threatened Dave, and the poor guy could only nod and run out of the garden. Dante's fury dissipated and he turned to face Mireille. Why don't you want me to have a boyfriend? I am so sick of you and James. Mireille hit his chest. They don't deserve you, and I will never ever let you fall into the hands of a man who doesn't deserve you, Princess. And who do you think you are to assume this role in my life? Mireille threw the question at him, and he moved 3 steps closer to her, closing the space in between them. Mireille gulped down noticeably at his closeness, because even as much as he annoyed her, he was freaking good looking. I am your protector, Princess. And I will be your protector for the rest of my life. Flashback ends, *. Mireille opened her eyes and looked at Dante one more time through the mirror, wondering if he had changed at all from what he had been in high school. But it didn't matter if he was changed or not, did it? What mattered was that she was no longer the high school girl who would let him influence her life and even make decisions on her behalf. She was an adult now and was in a relationship too. She was already too busy trying to avoid the good girl treatment from James, and she was most certainly not going to be made a good girl by Dante Romano. But just how certain was she that she would be able to stop him from assuming the position of a protector once more?
Please download Novels Ago and search the code in the upper left corner to continue reading.